Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Wednesday. It's March the 11th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And I know this looks really busy here, but I wanted to put it on there. There was a couple of different ways you could have looked at today. It looks real rangy. There's most of your highs were here. Later on, they moved down a little bit, as you can see right across here. Um, Maybe you might call it down here. You get the most touches with most of your closes being on one side or the other of the line. But this is where I started this morning, and we pretty much were in this range, and then we dropped down, and we didn't stay down here very much. We tried to get back up into this upper range, and then it just tightened up. But then there's also a two-tiered channel, I believe, that's working lower here. It was a little bit more difficult to find that bigger channel until later in the day. Um, so I'm going to take it off. Really, the way I saw it was this gap, this is where the market opened. And notice how there's no overlap there between those two bars. So I drew that line across there and drug it up. And then it did fit nicely in the middle here. You can see that it's kind of acting as support and resistance. And so I just drug it up to the top then. I originally had it up here. But when we turned down here, right there, a couple of times, I moved it down a little bit, like so, and then of course it touched it when we came back here as well. Um, so it is. I do believe it's valid. I do believe it held the prices all day, but it didn't help you a whole lot until later in the day. But I wanted to put it on there and make note of it and show it to you. So I'm gonna take that off. Um, Really, the way I traded this was with a shorter term trend lines or trend channels here, and they all worked out really well. You had one going up here, a break, a new high. Then you got this one moving down, a break, a new low. Then you got this one moving up, a break, a new high. Then you got this one moving down, a break, and a new low. And you actually have this one working up, a break, a new high, and then we went lower. And even if you play these shorter term ones, there's one right here. It's working down. You got the break, and then it went down. Um, you got the break and new low before it actually went up for this one, I guess is what I'm getting at. There's one over here that's very similar. I would have called it about like that. And if you look, it fits real well on both sides, but look, the break and the new low, and then it went up. And then you got one working up here, right there. And you get the break. You tried twice to go higher. You might have gone long right there as well. But we were so close to this resistance here, I didn't like it. And when it turned down there, then you got it's not really a failed second entry long or uh, move up. There's actually a failed second entry short there, and it goes higher. This got just enough to work, but um, I don't think you really. I don't think it was a good long, in other words, because you're right hung up. Look how flat the EMA is getting. You're hung up, all this overlap, all that resistance right there. It would have worked, but anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So I think you were better off to play um, the support and resistance and use these shorter term channels and trend lines and so forth. That just made it come a little bit clear. So anyway, that's how I got to what you see on my chart. And it's still a little busy. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two. I don't think they're that important, and I'll move this one out of the way just so you can see. And there's actually a shorter term one working here too. It didn't matter if you saw this one, you still got the break and I moved to a new low, but I believe that that's just one within this one, within this two-tiered one here. Uh, but the first opportunity I saw for a decent trade was right around 7 o'clock. Um, we'd been working up with this trend line. We had the break, a new high, and we made a new high, pullback, first entry, pullback. That's a second entry long, but that's really one leg there, and so you're probably going to get another leg, but I like this because you're looking for it to reverse, and whether you saw the shorter term trend line or the longer term trend line here, it still confirmed those first two swings up there. And so I like that for a short. Um, thinking that you'll at least go back to the EMA, maybe to here, and it just pushes right on through. Um, and then it pulls back, and you get another big bearish bar. Normally, I'd want to wait for a second entry here, but it's right off the trend line, the shorter term one. It broke higher and then turned and went right out the other side. Just have a stop waiting there. That's a nice setup. That's a big, huge bearish bar. You could have even used a stop there for that matter once this one closed. Um, it would have pulled back. It was a big bar, so you probably have to use a limit order, but it did pull back. You could have got filled halfway into that bar, and then it shoots down again before it bounces. And it bounces right off the lower side. And where do you expect it's probably going to go? At this point, um, you might have expected that here too, so that might have kept you out of that short, but you had to be paying attention to that trend line and knowing that, you got plenty of room to get out before you get here. So, but once it bounces, generally you're thinking it's probably going. Look how this one shoots right through the EMA, no hesitation at all, and it goes right back um, up here to the bigger trend line. And there's actually two trades here. One of them I marked green because it wasn't real clear. There's a lot of overlap there. You do get your break and attempted a new high. We didn't quite have one there, but by the time this is a bearish looking bar, but by the time it sets up, there's a lot of overlap there and a lot of stem on both sides. So it's really kind of congestion. It's not really a correction. So you definitely don't really want to go long there. Especially with this trend line possibly coming through there. So you just want to sit tight, and if you're going to take it, you want to go short right there. And then it pulls back and tests it again, and you get a failed second entry long. And that's a pretty bearish bar or bullish bar right there. But again, you don't want to go long into that because we got a trend working down. And even if you didn't see the two-tiered one here, which you should have seen this one. That's the first break. So just kind of wait and see what happens. And instead you get a short there. And I like that one because now you got the long trap. And I'm guessing that most people would probably got tricked to go long there. And then you start working back again. And you've got this double top here and your resistance is right there. That's a little failed break higher. And this is the first break of this two-tiered channel. And notice there's one leg up correction, second leg up. They're pretty much measured moves. There's leg one. There's leg two. Perfect measured move. And so there's several reasons to go long, to go short right there. And then there's a leg up there, correction, and another leg. Again, you don't know this is going to drop and go almost straight down like that, but you figured it's going to come back and test this, probably even test that one, and hopefully get a new low. And that's exactly what happens. And I would measure this leg once you got this little correction here. But notice this. There's your first entry, pull back. There's a second entry long there. And then it pulls back and it tries to go long again. This is another one. You just need to sit and be patient. There's no short. You only had breaks to go long, but I wouldn't be going long right here when we just had a break this and we're looking for the new low. And there's not really a good setup for a long. This is pretty bullish, but notice how it didn't break above it here. If it would have ticked lower and maybe given you a trap, but it wouldn't even do that. It never could get lower right there. But you definitely want to go short. You got enough room to get out before you get to the lows now. You might even use a limit order there, but that closed on its very low. I just put a stop there. And again, you don't know this is going to shoot off like that, but you're looking for probably a measured move at a minimum. There's your first leg. There's your second one. Where does that put you to? That's another important clue. Right down here where the lows are, where the next low is at. And that would probably be a good place to exit if you just want to try to get as much of this move as you can. Turns out it went much further, so that's the danger of trying to guess where to exit. But generally those measured moves are going to be pretty close. You may not, and understand this, I've said this before, you may not have heard it, but you can't get all of every move. If you can get 75 or 80% of it, you're doing really good. And you may feel like, hey, I still left a lot of money on the table, but when you start to get greedy in this business, you start to get hurt. And you know, if you can get 75 or 80% of most moves and trying to exit where you'll have a measured move or where the next support, strong support is, generally is going to get you where you need to be. Okay, sorry I had a slight interruption. But once we get to here, now you've got your new low in place. You're at strong support, and even though you got a setup there, you can't go short right there. You're asking for trouble. Would have worked, but this is you just watch it go without you. If you're still hanging on, let it go, but don't add on or jump in right there. And that's what'll happen. People more times than not, this will go one or two ticks, three ticks in reverse and go the other way. And then somebody will write to me and say, why did this second entry short here fail? Or this, failed second entry long. Why didn't it work? People see second entries and failed second entries and they just take them. But they don't see the big picture. And that's why they fail. Let me say this and hopefully everybody hears it. The price action is never wrong. We either misinterpret it or we misread it or something of that nature, but it's never wrong. That's the whole premise of what is going on here is to fool you and trick you into entering in the wrong direction at the wrong time. And if it was easy and everybody knew exactly what was going to happen, everybody would be doing it. But it's not easy. It's not that hard. You'll hear me say this a lot. It's not that hard, but it's not easy to learn it. Once you get it, it's a whole lot easier than you think it is. But getting there and getting it is the hard part. So. And I'm going to talk about this one right here because I got at least 2 emails from people that got fooled here as well. But anyway, we run down. We got the break, the new low, and so now we're correcting. So now is when you want to be expecting a failed second entry short, maybe, or some kind of trap or something, and you get that right here. But if you're looking at the big picture, do you really want to go long right there, even though there's a failed second entry short? This should have, when this touched that EMA and was a failed second entry short, it should have taken off. That's one thing. There's resistance right there. The trend line's right here. Yeah, we've had the break in the new low, but until we get safely through that, or until you get some kind of decent setup, I'd be very leery of that, especially when the trend line's way down here. Now, one of the people that sent me this, I think they maybe had I don't know how maybe they had it like that. And there probably that's probably how they had it there. And there probably is a short-term trend line there. But that's just a first entry right there. Even though it's a failed second entry short, it's still not someplace you want to go long, right into the top of that trend line. I drew mine off those first 2 swings. I think I originally drew it right here too. But you can't avoid those first 2 swings. And if you draw it off this one, look, if you drag it up, you're right at that trend line. It's probably more like that right there. And you probably overshot it right there. And so you don't want to go long right into the top of that trend line, especially if one that tight because it doesn't have very far. There's just lots of reasons you don't want to go long right there, even though it's a trap. And if you do, when it turns right back down, just exit. Don't let it come all the way down here and take a 2-point stop because, the trend has been down. The bias has been down. And, you got to be real careful about taking that counter trend trade, which is what that is. You want a trap, which you had, but you want something better than that. I really don't know any way different to explain it than that. If this was a nice bullish reversal type bar, maybe, but it's not. It's just a little doji, and this is not really a correction of much. It's almost just a hesitation. And this is your correction back to the trend line. And this one, I really went back and forth about being almost green. But even though this went higher here, this is like 2 legs back. Um, and then you have your little double bottom and a little failed break. And notice how it tried to get below that trend line and close. That tells you that there's something there. Um, it's holding prices. So now you got more clues and more, and so more people recognize that we're probably going higher now. And then guess what? It takes off. And they really trapped some shorts here. They didn't trap any shorts here. There's no reason to go short yet for here at all. Um, it's a terrible signal bar. It's really a doji, and then your next bar is a doji. That bar, there's no reason to go short. So nobody really got trapped there. This is where they trap some people, and probably below that big bar. I'll see people send me. Sorry, I had a little interruption, but anyway, I think we were talking about this trade, but um, you didn't want to go. We didn't. Nobody really got trapped till here, so and you can see why it took off right there. And it pulls back. I don't think you want to take that long. It's a first entry. You know, the signal. If you use this for a signal bar, but it's so big, you have to get in way down here, and it didn't come back, so you just can't really enter there. And you really even could consider this this is a close outside. It may, a lot of times you don't know if that's enough to turn the market, but it looked like it did. And then you got a little this correction working down. There's actually a shorter term one here as well. There's this one, and you got the break and a new low. Um, but you also could have looked at this one possibly, um, and then that would have made this one questionable. Um, but this also looks like a trading range. Notice all the matching highs, all the matching lows. And so I treated this like a failed breakout of that congestion. And we're looking for the new high. And if you saw the bigger channel, you're looking for prices to get to the upper part of the channel, and they're not there yet. So this one could be really iffy whether or not it was green or blue. Um, I decided to leave it as blue because I treating it like a failed break below out of this congestion with it snapping back and going back at least to the highs. Um, and you could have also looked at the shorter term. And you can see that that's an obvious shorter term little channel and a break. And there's actually a failed second entry long. Actually, it's right here, but it doesn't trigger, so it goes higher and then comes down. So you could still, actually, you could have even considered going short there. But the only problem with that is if this was the move down and you had your break, um, you might already have a new low. Well, no, I take that back because your break came here. So, yeah, you actually could have considered going short here. But the reason I didn't like taking any shorts here is because of the bigger trend line that's up there. Did I leave those lines on there? No. The bigger channel that's up there, and we're not back to that line yet. If it's right. Um, and we really weren't back to these highs here, which could have been your other target if you're just playing the support and resistance, the range type deal. So there's some reasons to skip that one. So anyway, if you did go short there, it worked. And that's another thing. There's not a lot of room there between there and that low. So, if it's one of those that ticks one tick lower and gets its new low, and sometimes you don't get a new low on these kind either. So that's another reason I was a little bit hesitant with that one. Um, but I like this to the upside. And again, this is real borderline, could be green almost. And then once it shot straight down again, you can't go short there on a first entry. But then I didn't trust it going long again either. Even though you did have your break and your new low, if you were just reading this one channel, then you probably would. If this would have broke higher here, maybe, but that's right into the EMA. Look how flat it is. So I was playing this more as the range then, and Let me put this line on there so you can see it. It probably becomes clearer then. You can see that support across there. It's really right across there. And so that's the reason I didn't like going short into that or long into it. If you entered up here, there's enough room. Um, so, but it's real close there. And the main reason is you're not back up to this trend line, which I took off, that's running somewhere across. Actually, it's a little higher than that. I think it was right there. Yep. And so now you've gotten up there. But I didn't like going long there. I didn't like going short in here. It just looks like you can see, if you move, oops, if you move this down, and this kind of, originally it was up here, but I would have moved it down here. And you can see it's just kind of a range. And you failed out the bottom twice. Now you failed out the top twice um, right here. So I just didn't really trust all this. It's too rangy looking and it's too tight, and I think you're better off just to wait and see what happens. And uh, when you came back and you got your double test, you might have considered going short here. It's not a perfect setup bar. It's a little bit aggressive because this is all flat, but when it broke higher again, you should have had your trend line right there too. When it broke higher again and turned down, now you got your trap, you got a trend line working down. You've double tested this line. Um, you've also double tested the highs of that little trading range, and you actually had a break lower here, so you kind of cleared that out now. And look at it go, boom, the bottom falls out. You don't know that it's gonna. You're just trying to get a scalp out of it, but this thing, the bottom just falls out of it. And this was a little hard. I mean, I believe this channel is valid right here. It fits, but we really overshot it there, and you had to consider that maybe there's two tiers to it, and there probably is, but it didn't really matter. Once we hit the bottom, it just reversed and went straight on. I don't think you want to be going long in there because there's no break of this yet, and there's actually a second entry long right there, which you could have entered there if you wanted. I didn't like the signal bar. I didn't like all that overlap again. Um, but you could have taken that trade. I think it would have worked. Let me just double check that before I tell you that. Because it didn't close on its high, I probably would use a limit order right there at the low or maybe a tick in. But let's just see if you entered one tick above 2045. You got exactly what you needed to get out. So, but again, I don't like that setup. It does fit the rules. You do have your little correction and a break and a new low. So I probably should circle. Actually, you didn't have the break yet, so that's probably why I didn't like it so much. Yeah, you can see that little channel. That's the first break, new low. And that's probably why I circled that one right there. And then it runs up and it touches that trend line again and reverses instantly. Um, this is one you probably want to use a limit order, but because it's got a lot of stem there. It's a huge bar. So let it break lower, drop a limit order there and see what happens and see if it'll come back and fill you and it takes off again. And when this started down, I would be looking for that measured leg like that one right there. And you can see we got it to the tick. So, and that's pretty much what I saw today. It was an interesting day. And it's much clearer in the morning than it is in the afternoon, and that's why I like being done by lunchtime. It's not always like that, but a lot of times the afternoons are just not quite as easy or clear, and you just have to kind of sit and you just have to kind of really pay a closer attention to the rules and be more patient, I guess. And if you do that, you're generally going to be okay. But you can get fooled more in the afternoons than I think you do in the mornings. At least, maybe it's just my imagination, but that tends to be the way I see it. So, but anyway, I want to spend a little more time with a few of these today and explaining them, kind of giving you my thought process on them since I was so swift to get through yesterday and get out of here. But I'm going to wrap it up. we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.